Hello.
Oh,
Hey,
hi, Sridhar.
Satish. Hey, how are you, Satish? How are you doing?
Good, good.
Good.
Happy to
All
be
right.
back on.
Yes, and this is our first podcast of the 2024 year and also the last week of the NFL season. And there is a lot of combinations, a lot of games that have potential playoff implications from being the number two seed to even getting out of the playoffs. So we have, I think, a few games that we want to talk about. But I do think there was one game I think we both wanted to go head to head. And then we'll get down to two games that you're going to pick, and then the two games that I will pick. So why don't we start with the first game? I think we have a pretty good matchup with Houston traveling all the way to Indy. And I want to hear your take. And both teams have potential to make the playoffs. So I want to hear your take, and then I'll wrap up with mine.
Yeah, so that's really exciting, right? And what's very exciting about that matchup is the loser is out and the winner is in, right? I mean, it's like it is there's it's just binary, and the line kind of reflects that. It's I think Texans favored by like 1.5. I don't know if it's moved around, but but the last time I picked Texans, which was a couple of weeks ago, I had
Hmm.
counted on CJ Stroud coming back, and he didn't that week, and so that's my excuse for why they lost. But CJ is back, and I think he is going to be the difference. Now, having said that, Gardner Minshew, right? I mean,
Hmm.
he's won a handful of games. I think maybe most in his career, and getting into the playoff under his watch would be like a real feather on his cap. And so, I got to tell you, the 1.5 probably does justice to the fact that 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 Minshew isn't gonna let this kind of easily go by, right?
Hmm.
But you look at the two defenses, pretty well matched, I would say. They generally do pretty well against each other.
Hmm.
Look like Texans defense on the passing, at least, maybe a little bit poorer than the offense. But then CJ Stroud, I mean, Minshew is, like I said, he's going to give a run for this. So, having said all of that, I am going to pick the Texans,
Hmm.
and I think they will just by definition cover the spread. But I do think it's going to be a very close game. In fact, I might even go as far as saying it could be one of those overtime games. It would be wonderful, wouldn't it, if it goes like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I mean, very interesting scenario. I debated this after when we started looking at what are the games that we want to pick, and I think you came back and said, "Hey, let's go head to head on that." And I'm actually glad you picked the Texans because I'm going the other way. And I'll tell you my reasoning for that. And I think I agree with everything that you said. CJ has been the most exciting quarterback in the NFL. And I think if it's not for his injury, I think they would be in a much better shape. Demi Ryan has done an amazing job coaching the Texans up. And again, of course, I'll have to give a shout out to the general manager, Nick Casario, who was one of the best scouts for Patriots. And ever since he left the Patriots, I think they're not doing well. But he's a
Mhm.
great talent. I know they've picked the right players, or whether it comes to defense and offense, and everything I like about the Texans, like you said. But like you said, having said all that, Gardner Minshew, the Minshew mania that started in Jacksonville, went to Philly, and is in Indy right now. What they have done is that they've actually done a great job. Even when Jonathan Taylor was down, he managed to they have some good receivers, Pittman, um, and they've done a great job of scoring on an average 20 to 25 points. Their defense has been un- unusually very good.
Yeah,
And they have a great opportunity. And again, remember what happened last year. They were the laughing stock of the NFL. Um, they fired Frank Reich. They brought in Jeff Saturday. The players did play for him 1 or 2 weeks, and then eventually, uh, you know, the owner decided to go in a new direction, and they were actually banking on Anthony Richardson. So think about all the things that have gone You could have potentially seen CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson, which will be a great matchup going forward next
Mm.
year. But I am actually the Colts are at home. They have a great opportunity, and I'm actually going to go with the Colts. On my thing. So I think that's a good binary pick, like you said. I feel the Colts are going to get back into the playoffs, and for you, Houston Texans. So go with the next two for you, and then I'll wrap up my two.
Yeah, the other two that I was gonna pick, the first was Jaguars and Tennessee Titans, and the reason I picked was, I mean, I think Jacksonville is kind of in the mix, right? The
Hmm.
question really is, do they get in like at six or some lower seed like that, or can they climb up to a four? Now, their challenge is going to be Trevor Lawrence. I think his situation is still not like totally confirmed in
Yep.
terms of whether he's going to be able to get in. Um, but I would still go with Jacksonville, but I would question the spread if Trevor doesn't play because they've got a spread. They're favored by like almost 6 points, and I don't know if they'll be that good.
Hmm.
Now, the reason I'm sticking with the Jaguars, and I think if they win this, they're up in like fourth seed potentially
Yep.
with a shot at playing the Browns instead of having to play somebody like Miami or Bills, which is a much tougher road. So it's in their best interest to win, I think. They've got this pass rusher, Josh Allen.
Hmm.
He's been racking up like what, like 2, 3 sack games,
So
like pretty good. So he's gonna have a go at Tennessee's O line, and I think Jacksonville will come away with it. I would, my prediction is if Trevor plays, they'll cover the spread. If
mhm.
Trevor doesn't play, they probably won't cover the spread, but will still win.
You'll still win. Okay, good. Okay, all right. So you're still
And
sticking with the Jaguars. So if the Jaguars win, and I think you said Houston wins. So in that case, Jaguars become the 4 seed, and Houston becomes the um, I would think the 7 seed or
the
six or
seventh,
seven seed.
right? But
Seven
if
seed.
Jacksonville goes to fourth, right? I think
Yep.
it's basically. I think Browns are locked into five,
Yeah,
so
they
they'll
are
end
locked
up
into
playing
five.
Browns. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's why they're even resting their starters. So Flacco is not even playing
yeah,
for the Browns.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. All right.
On
So
the
then
next
let me
one.
move quickly to the last one on my list, which is Seahawks and Cardinals. And really, there, I think Seahawks are like, kind of, on again, off again type of
Mhm.
team. And I would generally have like given them a shot at because I think if they lose this, they got to count on a lot of other things to make it to the playoffs. And so
Right.
clearly they'll give a run at it. They are not favored by a lot, like
Hmm.
less than three. But man, I have been impressed with what the Cardinals have been able to pull off in the last couple of games. And, I don't see them kind of resting up. I think they'll really give a go and surprise Seattle. And I'm going to pick the Cardinals over Seattle.
Yeah, I think that's not a bad pick because when I look at it, the ever since Kyler Murray came back, they are playing with a lot more. Let me put it this way: they are losing games, obviously, right? But they're actually exciting. Like they're very exciting, and they're playing. And that's one of the things that you never know in the NFL, right? These players, they want to play. They don't care about draft picks or things like that. So
Exactly.
I like your pick there. Um, and then I think since you said this, before I go to my Saints and Falcons and then Bills and Dolphins, very interesting scenario which I heard a little bit. So here's a scenario: if say the Colts win, right? The Colts win, they make the 4 seed, and say the Jaguars lose and the Steelers lose.
Mm,
Something that's going to like one of the things that is going to determine the 7 seed then
yeah.
would be the winner of the Broncos and Raiders. Funny
Is that
because
right?
yes, Broncos and Raiders have nothing to play for. So if the Jaguars and Steelers lose, and I don't think the Steelers will lose because they're playing Baltimore, and Baltimore has already said they will
Yeah.
rest all the starters. And I think Jaguars, going to Tennessee, like you said, that's the potential. But if they both lose, the Broncos' victory would make sure that the Steelers get in. The Raiders' victory, on the other hand, would make sure that the Jaguars get in. Crazy scenario. And I
Wow.
just heard it, and I didn't even think about this.
So
And I
who's
don't think
playing first? Who's playing
I think
first
that's the last.
between
That is the.
Jaguars?
I think the Broncos. I think one of them is a Saturday game and one of them is Sunday game. But I think this one is a Monday game actually. The
Oh wow.
Broncos. So it is going to be very exciting. So let me go to very quickly to the. Um, just think about that, and I think people can have a kick out of that. And I think you could see both the players sitting and watching TV and rooting for, Steelers rooting for the Broncos, and then the Jags rooting for the Raiders. Anyway, going back to the Saints and Falcons, the Falcons have nothing to play for. The Saints
Yeah.
impressive victory on the road against the Bucks. I I feel that the Saints, from a defensive standpoint, they still play hard, and I'll tell you what, Derek Carr has actually, as much as I'm not a big fan of him, has actually come out pretty well, pretty strong. They got some good weapons, Kamara, um, and then Olave and all these guys from a wide receiver standpoint. So I think the Saints are going to come in and they're going to easily win against the Falcons. So for me, and I think it's going to depend on the Bucks game, the Bucks playing the Panthers, and I think if the Bucks win, even if the Saints win, they can still get in, but there are going to be a lot of combinations in the NFC. But to me,
Hmm.
I think the Saints are definitely the better team. I don't even think the Atlanta coach is going to even stay next year. I think he's going to be gone. I don't think they need to do. They are going to do a complete retool. I think so. The Saints for the win in the NFC South matchup. The
All
last
right.
one, which is the Bills and Dolphins. Let me
Yeah.
give you
Let's talk
let
about
me yes. Let me give you this scenario here, Satish. If the Bills lose, well, let me start with if the Bills win, they're going to be the number two seed, right?
number two. Yeah.
And they will win the AFC East just like they've won every year. If the Bills lose, they could actually be out of the playoffs if everything else happens. So that's a very interesting matchup. I mean, I wasn't really impressed with the Bills last week against the Patriots. The Patriots pretty much gave them the game, four turnovers in the first quarter. And even with that, the Bills only won by a single score. They could have each actually lost the game if the Patriots were able to march down the field and score. But anyway, having said that, the Bills have not been really sharp. Stephon Diggs, I just heard a stat. He's only had 60% of the snaps in the last few games. Not sure if it's an injury related or, he's much like a diva. Josh Allen, I'm a big fan of Josh Allen. However, he does make a lot of mistakes. Even the one pick he threw last week against the Patriots was a really bad pick. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but the defense is actually playing okay for the Bills. And the Bills are riding, a good wave, right? They are riding a winning streak. So, I see the momentum. Usually in the NFL, I usually look for the momentum that carries the team into the playoffs. So, even though this game is at the Dolphins, on the other hand, um, they've been up and down, and this is the first year Tua has actually started all the 16 games. So, kudos to him. Didn't have any issues with concussion or anything like that. But
Yeah.
one of the issues with the Dolphins is that both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are a little suspect. They didn't practice Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. I think Waddle is definitely not going to go. Hill will go. But the problem is like if the Hill is blanketed by the Bills defense, Tua has to go to other options. And this is where he struggles a little bit. So to me, um, I do think that the Bills are going to go on the road and beat the Dolphins straight
Oh
up.
wow.
It's a 3 point spread. I think whatever. I think they're going to go on the road and beat the Dolphins, and the Bills will go to the number two seed, and the Dolphins will end up with the six seed. I think if the Browns are the five seed, it could be
Yeah.
I think the Browns are five, so the Miami Dolphins could be six, which means the Kansas City Chiefs will play the Dolphins in the playoffs. So
Yeah, and maybe Miami can get back and at Kansas City and knock
yeah,
them out.
Yeah, maybe that would be a great thing because I think that's a revenge game for Kansas City for Miami also. So I know we went long, but I think there's a lot of interesting. This is a very important, and the NFL is probably one of the best sports when it comes to you know putting the games in the right time zones and to make sure that it makes it very interesting for an NFL viewer to watch it. And so I think this is kudos to the NFL. And this is going to be a fantastic Saturday and a Sunday on a Monday. We don't want to
Yeah.
get to Monday, if the Steelers and Jags lose. But I do think that this is excellent in terms of that. Um, and I think the one thing I did want to call out is that I know we're not picking this game. I just want to do a quick call out about the Eagles. They were 10-1, and they right now could be traveling to either the Saints or the Bucks to
Yeah.
play on the road
Yeah.
right
Humble
now. That's
pie.
where they're looking at. If the Dallas Cowboys don't beat Washington on the road, so that's where they are. So they both control their own destiny, and so the NFL is a crazy sport, and then that's where we are right now.
This
So
has been an awesome season. I mean,
yeah,
I don't remember, when the last time was that until the last week there was so much movement.
yes, and I think
Going down.
drama. Yes, drama galore, right? I mean, you thought at one point Miami was going to win the AFC East. Right now, you're looking at Miami going from a 2 seed or a 1 seed to a potential 6 seed, and the Bills look lost, and now they're
Yeah, they
looking
do.
like they look like they could be the number 2 seed, and having a pretty easy game at home. And
Yeah.
obviously, the road still goes through Baltimore. I do think they are the best team in the NFL because they did by virtue of them, demolishing even 49ers. So Baltimore can wait, they can relax, they're going to pretty much that's why one of the reasons why I feel Steelers could win and they could still be out of the playoffs. maybe, but we'll see. Um,
This is going to be a fun playoffs to look forward to, Sridhar. So,
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I know both our teams are out, but we're going to sit and watch uh,
exactly.
every game. And maybe at another time, the Patriots play the Jets, but another time I can reflect upon what would happen to Coach Belichick if this is his last game as a coach for the Patriots. A lot of talk, so we will get to that maybe during the bye week when we pick all the division games. So
Yeah. Well, look forward to connecting back then.
yeah,
And
and I,
thanks.
I know this is a long playoff. This is doubled in the under that 9 minute mark, but I think this was neat.
Yeah. Bye,
All right.
Sridhar.
All right.
Have a good
Thank
one.
you. Have a good night. Yep. Bye bye.